Hello everyone and welcome back to the Big Analytics Query. Today we are joined by Fabric expert Georgia Ingham to talk all things Fabric. Georgia, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. I'm looking forward to discussing all things Fabric today and also being back on the show. It's been a while since June.
Yeah, well, welcome back and let's get into it. So why don't you start, what is Fabric and why is it a useful tool for organisations?
Fabric is, it's like one integrated platform. So it combines your data warehousing, your real-time analytics, your business intelligence and reporting and things like that. It's integrated into one platform. So you're no longer using like different tools to try and do data engineering. So whereas previously you'd be using SSMS and things like that, instead you've got it all in one integrated platform. And that just means that you're reducing silos, reduces costs for organisations, and all round just reduces the complexity of your solutions really. I mean, you've got just one place and everything's there.
Sounds very convenient to have it all in one place. And one thing I've recently heard from developers, it's applying architectures in Fabric. What does that even mean and how does it work?
In Fabric, applying architectures means sort of designing your solution in a structured way using sort of proven tools and features like your lake houses, your warehouses, and then your real-time features, and then also medallion layers as well. So your bronze, silver, and gold. So why is it important? I guess it's important because Fabric's really easy to build with. So you can go in pretty much as someone that maybe doesn't even know that much about architecture or data engineering, and you can just start building straight away. It's really usable. But with that can come issues with sort of how to structure your data, how to govern it, so that you have data that you actually trust. And that's where architecture sort of comes in. Provides sort of guardrails. So it separates your raw data to your transformed data to then your business ready sort of data. It can control your costs on your shared capacity. And then it can also just ensure like consistency, I guess. So you just have more predictable performance. You have scalable analytics, and also Fabric supports data governance, so this is really useful to be able to, again, just ensure that reliability and that trust that you have within that.
Which architecture type can deliver the most value and use in Fabric?
To be honest, I think it probably really depends on sort of what the organisation's needs are, what scenario you've got. Each one has its benefits and then you can also sort of combine them together. Obviously there's, I think, a lot of different types of architecture, but the couple that I'll mention are sort of medallion architecture. So that's where you have your different layers. So you've got your bronze, which has got your raw data in. You have your silver layer with your sort of more transformed data, and then your gold layer, which has got your sort of conformed and ready to report data in. Medallion architecture is all about layers. However, your mesh architecture is all about ownership of data. So instead of having just one architecture with different layers, each, say, team in an organisation, so you might have like sales and then HR and finance, they have ownership over their data. And so they're responsible for their data quality and how they use and sort of structure their data.
Sounds like the two options are quite different and therefore have different strengths, particularly when it comes to governance. If you are an organisation choosing between Medallion and Data Mesh, how do you know which one you should pick? Do you have any examples of why people would pick one way or another?
It's a good question. I think, sort of as I said earlier, it depends on the goals of the organisation and also what stages you're at with Fabric as well. So if you were just starting out with Fabric and maybe you've only got one data team and only a few different data sources, if your main purpose is actually that you want to sort out your like messy data, and at the minute you've just got no structure, There's no single source of truth, so no one knows where to go to get their insights for the data of the company. Then maybe you just start with your Medallion architecture. However, if you've got a big company and you've got multiple data teams across sort of different departments, sort of as I mentioned earlier, you might have a finance and a sales department, both with maybe like a data expert within each one. Maybe it's better that they deal with their data sort of separately, and they have that control over their data. Just because, I mean, I guess it makes sense. If you're a sales data person, you'll know your data a lot better than maybe one central team that's trying to cover all different bases for one big company with lots of different data sources. Yeah. So I think it really depends on sort of the scenario. Yeah, so I guess with sort of mesh architecture, it just allows that sort of scalability across teams, which can be really good. I guess the drawback with that is sort of depending on the governance. Does it lack that sort of consistency that a Medallion architecture might have, particularly if just one team is sort of in control of that data and that structure of that data as well. I think maybe it's probably quite a good solution is the two sort of architectures go hand in hand really. Like they are different, but maybe a solution that you might want to consider is if you have a big company and you have got different teams, to ensure that you have got that consistency and governance, you have that one sort of centralised architecture. So maybe those Medallion layers that everyone's got to stick to, but actually each team still has ownership of their own data, so that you still know that the data that you're getting is actually owned by the people that sort of know it best, which I think is sort of the best way to go really.
And do you have an example of how this might actually work within the world of Fabric and its combined architectures?
Yeah, so I guess one of the main sort of benefits with using Fabric is that you can pull data in from all different sources into one sort of platform. And then you can also try and integrate this data and use it all together. And I've actually sort of recently been working on a project where, you've got a police force with multiple different data sources. So you might have a data source for your crime data and your incidents data. You might have a HR system with sort of any employee data that you might want to be able to report on. You've then got your duty data, so who's on duty at what time, and then also another big sort of area for police forces like your custody data and things like that. All of these are really, really useful, and you want to sort of pull them all together into one place, not just so that you can have all of that data within Fabric, but also potentially so you could maybe even look at creating a data model that incorporates all of the different data sources, and you can create conformed tables. So actually you have one central employee table that actually incorporates your HR data, your data that you've got for custody, and your data that you've got for your crime. So potentially you might be interested in what officers have dealt with sort of a detainee in custody, but then what officer was dealing with that crime and things like that, and you can see sort of the bigger picture of all of that information, and that can help with the insights that you're getting from your reports. And I think Fabric is just really useful for that, because it just allows that sort of seamless integration of all of those sources in one place that perhaps you wouldn't usually get. I think as well, having those Medallion like architecture within sort of that police data as well. I mean, it's useful for lots of different data, yeah. But in police forces you have sort of access control lists, which actually control sort of well, it flags, if that's a sensitive record or not, and so therefore that's something that you might want to apply on a gold layer of your Medallion architecture. So your data engineers that are going in and sort of looking at the data and transforming it, maybe they're able to see that data. But actually, when it comes into that gold layer, you don't want that data to be appearing, because you don't want that to appear in the reports. And that's something that you can control through the layers, which is obviously a really useful thing that Medallion architecture offers.
Very useful, and you can definitely see how that relates to others. Do you have any private sector examples of where you might use a different architecture? Or,
like I said, I mean, combining them is probably best, and I think that's what quite a lot of people do. But I guess a private sector example might be, I guess if there's been a merger, and you only want certain people to have access to the information about that merger, so to do with all the money and everything like that. That's probably a really useful example of where that having those layers to be able to control the access of the sensitivity of the data comes in as well. But also with mesh, if you've got the different teams as well, maybe only having access to the team's data that's relevant to you as well, and things like that.
So using the both and to control it entirely.
Yeah,
basically.
exactly. Yeah, definitely.
And do you have any top tips if you're starting out on Fabric at all, or Fabric architectures, specifically on how to really get going? It's been around for a while now, but it seems it's constantly changing. So how do you start?
Yeah, I think probably just start simple. Don't go in with trying to ingest 10 different data sources all at once. Make sure you go in, you know what you're setting up, so you've discussed and planned what your architecture is going to look like, how that's going to work, how you're going to implement it, and then go in and build it, and then start to bring in your data sources. Don't rush into it, because at the end of the day, that architecture will be the foundation of your data, will really determine sort of how well that process is going to work, from bringing in that raw data to then spitting out reports at the end, and things like that. So that would be one of my tips. And another one I think is just knowing who your data experts are within each team. If you're using that mesh architecture and you're having data teams within different teams, then knowing who your sales data expert is going to be really useful, so that everyone knows who they're going to, and also everyone knows that they can trust that data that's coming through as well, and that has been sort of controlled by someone that knows what's going on, basically. I think knowing those key people is really important.
And I guess getting the assurance that it is being done, rather than just assuming someone's going to do it, but them not having anyone.
Exactly, yeah, exactly.
Well, thank you very much for joining, Georgia.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you for watching. If you've got any questions about Fabric or architectures, do write them in the comments below. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel. We'll see you next time. Thanks.
Thanks.
Bye.